What's the most f***ed-up thing you saw at a sleepover? I slept over a friend's house when I was around 10, and we were playing Nintendo. At some point he yelled shit, and without a word his dad comes, storming into the room, pulled him up and just started spanking him in front of me, then took him out into the hallway to scold him. Then he just came back as if nothing happened, but with a red face and teary eyes. It was the most awkward, uncomfortable night of my life, having to continue on pretending to have a fun sleepover after that. But I felt so bad for him, I did my best. It was what I imagined sleeping over at Butter's house would be like. I have another sleepover story that always sticks in my mind too, but does not deserve its own post, so I'll just summarize here. Watched Aladdin at a birthday party. Woke up later that night to friend's older bro jerking off noisily in his sleeping bag with the movie paused on a scene of Jasmine. Kidded who had a pee jar in his closet. It was a gallon pickle jar. If he had to pee in the middle of the night, he had to use the jar. Once his mum put him just in his room for the night, we weren't allowed to leave his room until she came to get us the next morning. How did they make sure of that? The door knob was turned around backwards, so they could lock us. They could lock him. Not something I saw, but one of my friends in high school told a group of us girls a sleepover that she'd been babysitting the previous weekend, and the girl reported to her that she was being molested by her uncle. My friend was so upset and scared to tell her parents. They were family friends and hadn't told anyone. We made her go upstairs and tell her mum. Her mum called the other family, and we basically heard both her parents sobbing off and on all night. The other parents called the cops, and as far as I recall, the uncle was arrested and spent some time in prison. My friend was really scared she'd have to speak in court, but didn't have to. When I was around 13-14, a kid I invited over to my sleepover birthday party decided to strip down to his tighty-whities right before cake and ice cream. Myself, my parents, friends and relatives were mortified. Apparently, it was normal behavior at his house. When I was 12, we went on a family trip. I woke up in the hotel to my parents having sex in the bed next to me. I was trapped and had nowhere to go. My mum said something along the lines of, "Stop, we're gonna wake up the kids." My dad gets up, walks over to our bed, and rips the blankets off our faces and said, "See, fast asleep. I should have won an Oscar." When I was in elementary school, I got invited with my sister to a birthday party of one of her friends. Everything was going fine for most of the night. And then the catastrophe happened. Her mum came down to the basement and was clearly very upset, but didn't explain why. She then had each of us line up on the stairs from the basement to the ground level of the house and brought us in one by one. I wasn't the first in line, but no one was telling us what happened once it was their turn. Finally, I was up, and her mum took me into the bathroom and showed me a trash can with a poop in it. She was basically on the verge of tears, pointing to the trash can and asking me, "Is this your poop? Is this your poop?" It wasn't. We never found out whose it was, or at least I wasn't told. We have joked that someone will finally come forward on their deathbed, but my sister and I have since lost contact with those girls, so we may never know. One time I was at a friend's house for a sleepover, and he and another friend held me down on the couch and tried to light my hair on fire with light. I managed to break free and ran upstairs and asked my friend's mum to let me use the phone. Mum came promptly to pick me up. I was 13-14 and staying the night at a friend's house with two other girls when we were woken up by a loud popping noise from her brother's room. Naturally, 4 curious girls went to see what the hell he was doing at 3 in the morning. Her mum came running up the stairs about the time we entered his room, and quickly herded us back out of his room in hysterics. It took my brain forever to register that he had shot himself in the chest. Luckily, he survived, and I never had another sleepover at someone else's house again. Plenty of nightmares. When I was about 14, some friends and I had a camp out in one of our back. This was in a regular, older neighborhood in the city, but certainly not rich, but not the ghetto either, just a working-class neighborhood. Anyway, I have no idea what time it was, but I woke up and there was this guy standing in amongst us as we lay there on the ground in our sleeping bags. He was just looking at us. I freaking froze, but I was ready to scream my lungs out as I watched him through the slits of my eyes. After what seemed like a year, he stepped out from between us all, went over and hopped the chain-link fence, and walked off down the alley. I immediately woke everyone and we went inside to tell my friend's mom. Obviously, we finished our sleepover inside. That was also the last outside sleepover. Edit. I didn't expect this to blow up. Thank you for the awards. Kind internet stranger. One of my first dads tried to get me drunk and made a pass at me. I was 15 and staying at my one girlfriend's house. Her dad tried to be cool, and boy, us wine coolers. So she and I were up drinking and listening to music in her room. Her dad had to listening right outside of the door, because when I went out into the hallway, he popped right up in my face. He started getting way too close and handsy. This was not my first rodeo. I've been dodging my mom's sugar daddy's slashing for years. So I saw what was happening and escaped into the bathroom. I pretended to be sick until he left the hallway. I was friends with his daughter until college. I just made sure to never be alone with her dad again. Sad thing is I wasn't her only friend who he tried things with, but we never talked about it until years later.